and welcome back to another episode of Awaken, Heal and Transform with your host, me, Francesca Raffa. Today I am joined by the beautiful, lovely lady whose name is Nadia, and she is an energy healer and coach, and she empowers others to surrender, to trust, and to dare to connect to their inner power within to thrive. So I'm really excited to hear about Nadia's journey and the tools that she uses from her experience that she cares to share with everybody else. So let's welcome the lovely Nadia. Hi, Nadia. Thank you so much for joining the Awaken, Heal and Transform podcast today. I am so excited for this conversation, and it's a pleasure to have you on board.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me onto your podcast.
Oh, you're very welcome. It is my pleasure. I connected with you through Instagram, and your energy for one spoke to me, and you are an energy healer and coach. And this podcast is all about bringing on other practitioners that work with energy or any type of spirituality that have awoken to a new perspective and a new way of life, which I really want to share this message with my listeners. And I just thought you would be a great person to bring on board throughout your journey and how you empower others to reconnect with themselves as well, and to be able to thrive in their lives, which is why I find this work so important. So I wanted to talk about your journey into, well, this thus far really, and what started it for you, and where are you today?
Yeah, no, thank you. So my journey it really started the whole awakening journey about 10 years ago. But actually, I think it started the minute I was born, like I guess most of us. And yeah, already like being born and birth is like a trauma in itself, even if you don't remember, if you into these things, and it's not just like woo-woo stuff, but it does affect you on a cellular level, because it's a big shock, right, to just come out into the world. But actually I was born premature at 6 months, and it was really traumatizing. I don't remember it, but it stays in your system and your energetic system. And so my mom tells me that she, 3 months into like her, birthing journey, or her pregnancy, should I say, she was told that she had to go into hospital 3 months in, and she couldn't move. She was just had to lie down, because there were loads of complications. And yeah, there was a high, like 90% risk that we both wouldn't make it.
Wow.
So already that, I think, yeah, in itself, from being born, was like a kind of special circumstance in life. So I feel that even though I say my journey started 10 years ago, it was like, since day one.
Miracle.
Yeah. And so and it's interesting, because even as a child, I remember being, I had a very like fortunate upbringing, and from the outside had everything that I needed and more. Loving family, loving parents, even though my parents were divorced, but nowadays that's a bit of the norm. But I was yet, even as a child, I was really deeply unhappy and never really sensing that I belonged here. And I didn't know why. And I remember I started journaling from a very young age, and I would draw like cemeteries, and I would wish, that I wasn't here. And that was quite dark for like such a young age. I think I must have been around, 12, 13, around that age. And I was always like really shy, wouldn't talk much. And I kept on getting told since childhood, and even now, that I'm too sensitive, and I feel too much, and all of that. And well, I've been in the corporate world all my life, and now I'm kind of transitioning between full-time corporate, and I'm hoping to, in a year's time, do do like the whole like women's empowerment and energy coaching full time.
Mm,
But yeah, it's been quite tough, because almost it's been a bit like being sensitive and being an empath is something wrong.
yeah.
um and actually it, it is a superpower in a sense, because we feel, I think anyone who's into energy feels so much more and is more in tune with oneself and others. So yeah, but when I referred at the beginning to 10 years, the journey started 10 years ago. That was mainly after a very like traumatic, codependent relationship.
Mm,
And I was just really like harming myself without really knowing what I was doing. I was just giving everything of me away, and I was really chronically neglecting myself, not just in romantic relationships, but all relationships.
mm,
um, and then I got diagnosed with an autoimmune condition that was really creating havoc in my health and mental, and all like at a multi-dimensional level.
mm,
So all of that combined, there was no other way but to change. So I went onto this journey of self-discovery and healing. And actually, my first port of call, I remember being attracted and really drawn to energy work. And so I went to see a lady back in the day. And now she's like a really famous coach, but she started off at like quite out there. And what, before 10 years ago, it was quite out there, to talk about energy healing and all this stuff and spirits and all that. But yeah, that's really where I was first drawn to, and to be honest, I still am, because we know everything is energy. The computer, we're both like looking at each other on, is energy, and it's all like atoms and molecules. And even though we can't see energy,
mm,
we can definitely sense. And I always give the example of, you look at your microwave, like you can't see the energy waves heating your food up
right.
yet it's there, right? So
Mhm,
it's the same principle. And this is kind of quantum physics. It's science. It's not a made up story.
mhm. Wow, that is such an incredible journey, and thank you for sharing so openly and honestly. And I can resonate with so many of the things that you were saying, which is, another reason why I had to connect with you, because, funny enough, I was actually born dead in so many ways. I
Wow.
had choked myself on the umbilical cord. So what you were saying about birth being traumatic and things that we don't remember, and it stays with you on a cellular level. And it's like, I don't know, in so many ways throughout life, it's kind of like I've always felt like time was running out. I'm
Mm,
sure you could probably relate to that as well. Because if you didn't feel like you belonged, so did I. I had everyone around me, all the support, all the friends, but it's like that belonging, there was something so unknown about it, and it was the questions that I would ask myself all the time. And it's such an interesting concept that a lot of this awakening journey, like you've been saying, does happen as a child, and we don't realize what's happening, and we're told that, oh, well, we're told to suppress it.
mhm,
And that is what happens. We're told to suppress all of these thoughts, that it's just in our head, that, if we just kept going through life and keep sticking to the societal norms, that, it will go away, that feeling will go away, that belonging will go away. But it doesn't go away, because that belonging is a belonging to self, which very much you went through that self-discovery journey. It's very much that you're belonging to a world, but there's so much more within you that you've lived, and that's the belonging. It's that reconnection with all of those sort of lifetimes that somewhere in your body has happened, like you said, on the cellular level, but you can't quite pinpoint what that is. So there's so much that I want to sort of pick out of your story that you said there. So first of all, I really want to talk about the sensitivity and being a sensitive, and how that is in the corporate world, for you, and how you've had to deal with that, with your sensitivity and empathetic nature in a
mm.
corporate world.
Mm. Yeah, I know that's a great question. And I feel, during my corporate kind of journey, I've always been told, oh, but, like, believe in yourself and stop being so nice,
Mm,
and all these things. And, in the corporate world, you, it's not, I'm not saying it's like this everywhere, but it tends to be very much like people pleasing and ego driven, and it's like so much competition. And so I think it's what's really served me is to exercise almost like a muscle, but a different part, a different energy. So, if you are sensitive and you're in the corporate world, then there's nothing to be ashamed of, and to embrace all of who you are. But yet, on the other side, without pushing, it's like, how can you tap into the other energy? So I suppose more the masculine,
mm,
and balance, the feminine and the masculine energies. And how can you tap into the masculine and more of that, confidence, that self-belief, that assertiveness? Those are not bad things, but I think it's like, if you feel like you're one or the other, is like, what can you do to balance those energies out?
mhm,
um and I feel another thing also is, yeah, tapping, when I say tapping into your confidence, is, are there small steps that you can take to get out of your comfort zone? Because again, that is a practice, and it's like I was saying before, it's a muscle.
mhm.
It's, you don't just get confident, from one day to the other. So you have to keep on slowly, compassionately doing things to get you out of that comfort zone. And then, you build that up as you go. And the other thing I was going to say is also around boundaries. Like, it's really important to have boundaries. And if you tend to be a more of a sensitive, you'll say yes to a lot of things. And it's learning to say no, because saying no doesn't mean that you'll be less successful, or that people will look at you less. Actually, quite the opposite. Saying no, again, does demonstrate that assertiveness, that, self-love, that self-care, to say no.
Mm. Yeah, that's again, it's deeply resonative with me. I don't even know if that's a word, resonative, but I'm gonna make it a word. Yeah, it's so true. I mean, obviously I used to work in corporate as well, and every day you'd go in and I'd have to put on this face that I felt like, you know, deeply to my true nature wasn't there. It was so much energy that I had to put on, that it would burn myself out even quicker, because I was constantly putting on this front, even if I wasn't feeling it that day. You have to feel it, you have to be there. And I'm so glad to see now, in a lot of industries, well-being and mindfulness is really being practiced and really high prioritized, which is such a great transition to see,
Yeah.
because we're starting to realize in so many levels that if we don't take care of that part of us, or that balance like you were talking about, it's just not going to be sustainable for us
Mhm.
long term. The health is going to start deteriorating, and it is all boils down to the stress that is faced, or the fronts of suppressing constant emotions that you're feeling and not being able to speak up because you're afraid.
Mhm.
You're scared of being portrayed in a certain way as weak, especially in the corporate world. You don't want to be that one that people can take advantage of you easily. And there's all these things that you have to think about and almost mold yourself to in so many ways. And from my experience, it personally, it was like, one person at work and very different person on the weekends. But
Yeah.
it was like, and like, it was such a constant work hard, that I almost had to work hard, and then the play hard would be just as hard, because that's what I thought was balancing it out, but actually I was just draining the energy even more.
Mm.
um, and so what I wanted to ask you was, what are some of the tools that you use, that could be helpful to others in that situation, and the tools that you also share with others in your
Mm.
practice?
Yeah. So one of the things is, especially now in our times where, it's been over a year that we've been in lockdown, and we're coming out of it now in the UK. um, and people, especially people who haven't been furloughed, like myself, people feel really exhausted and really tired. And it's almost like, what's been coming up a lot this week, even with clients. And I was on this speaking panel on Monday, and the people were saying that it's almost like they're so tired, but they're also really beating themselves down
Mm,
in their, the voice in their head is really like critical,
mm,
and it's that constant pushing. So one of the tools that might sound really simple, but it's so powerful, is being more aware. And we know that everything starts with awareness, and it's being more aware of that voice in your head, and how are you speaking to yourself, how are you thinking.
mhm,
And that goes really well hand in hand with journaling. um, to be totally frank, like, so
mm,
many people, coaches and healers in the last years have said to me, oh, but you need to journal more. And it's something that I'm building up as a practice. But I see like the power in journaling. If you do a few minutes in the morning, when you wake up, and you just write down, free writing, whatever comes into your head onto the page, that is a form of just quite cleansing and quite cathartic, where you just release everything.
mhm,
And that will also make you more aware of how you're speaking to yourself. So I think, like, really making sure that our lexicon and the words that we're using are more expansive than critical and judgmental, because sometimes we tend to do that and we don't even notice it, because it's become so like, on autopilot, almost like in a trance or a hypnosis. So
mhm,
it's really like step one is becoming really aware
mhm,
of that. And another like easy tool that has really helped me for people, like, meditation is a big thing, and mindfulness is that buzzword that people sometimes are a bit like sick of hearing, because it's quite cliche. But it doesn't have to be like, you're sitting in meditation cross-legged and saying for hours on end. It could even be like, when you wake up in the morning, taking 5 minutes to sit just in silence. You don't even need to do anything specific, and you don't even need to watch or control. Well, you don't need to control your thoughts. It's just watching your thoughts and letting them pass by. And what I do is, I'm a huge advocate of ceremonial grade cacao, because that's such an amazing, first of all, superfood. Has so many benefits for your physical health, your mental, your emotional, your spiritual. And so what I do is, I sit with a cup of cacao in the morning, and then I just sit in silence for 5-10 minutes.
mm,
And that's a really easy thing that one can do, because again, people are so like prone to be on autopilot. Will wake up, will have a cup of coffee in the morning because they need to wake up and feel energized, because they're so exhausted.
mhm,
And then they rush out to go to work, or they rush, if they're working from home, they rush to their desk. and
mhm,
so it's just like, yeah, being more present and being more mindful with what you're doing. It all goes back to, a lot of people on this like journey have often start with the book, the Power of Now. But
yeah,
and it's actually that, it's just being present with what you're doing. So if you're drinking a cup of cacao, really like being present with all your senses, like,
mhm,
what does it smell like, what does it look like, what does it feel like, and then just really mindfully drinking every sip and feeling how it feels in your body, for example.
yeah,
um And yeah, and I work in the, coffee world, and so I've been really used to drinking coffee, and I've replaced my daily cup of coffee in the morning with cacao. And I've seen, I shouldn't be saying this, but I've seen so many benefits. And
Mm,
even today, I, for the first time in a few weeks, I had coffee and I felt really,
yeah.
really like nauseous after. So with cacao, it's full of like minerals, full of magnesium. It has more than 40 times more antioxidants than like blueberries. A huge, like, amazing source of iron, of potassium. um, it also like stimulates the production of serotonin, and of the bliss hormone. So like so many things, I could talk about it for ages, but yeah, it's really amazing. And if you're more into the spiritual energy
Mm.
um, world, then, which I'm sure your audience is, then that is also, cacao is also a great ally to meditate with, or to
Mm,
do an energy Reiki healing session with, because it just really connects you more deeply, I feel, into yourself.
mm,
And it expands your heart. It's all about expansion, but it's a very, it's a master medicine, plant medicine,
mhm,
but really gentle. So it's not like a psychoactive, like other plant medicines
mhm.
that, of course, have their space. But yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing those tools, and so good to hear about cacao. And I have done a couple of cacao ceremonies myself.
Mm.
I love cacao. Very happily to hear that you're replacing coffee with cacao. I'm a big advocate for replacing coffee with different types of tea. I mean, obviously tea is my sort of medium,
Yeah.
my means to be able to connect, but very much the same thing. And some of the things that you were talking about in terms of where people get up and they're so stuck in this routine of almost constant distraction.
Mm.
I feel like we don't take the acknowledgement of that reconnection and the benefit of it. And it's almost like, because we've never done it, it's not ingrained in us to try and do it. But the benefits of when you do start doing it, like you said, it's just 5 minutes. There are simple practices that don't have to be a stigma in any way, because I
Mhm.
feel like there is a bunch of stigmas around this, and especially in the corporate world, it's like hippy dippy stuff a lot of the time you get told. And it's like, actually, some of the most successful people in the world are really spiritual, and there's no surprise in why that is.
Mhm.
There's no that the creativity comes from within. So where did the ideas come from to come up with an innovation?
Yeah.
If people spent more time in connection with themselves, truthfully, the purpose of who they are will come through and the ideas will flow. For me, that's been my major journey. And and what I find interesting is, a lot of the times when we talk about awakening into a spiritual path, I mean, there's so many words that people use. I just call it awakening to coming home to who we are, who we truly
Mm.
are. A lot of it tends to start from a trauma. You said that you suffered with your autoimmune disease, and I hear this a lot in a lot of people's journeys, is that they start with this somewhat trauma, or relationship, and it's like you start realizing these patterns, and you start having to go, right, I really need to look at myself here, because there's obviously something that I am doing in my life that is attracting some sort of negativity, that is spiraling me into some form of maybe physical dis-ease, like yourself, but also mental disease, and emotional as well, which is all linked, of course. But this is a lot of the awakening does start through having to make a change, because you just can no longer go on the way that you are living, in the situation that you're living in the way that you're living, with being so, almost like you have these blinkers on
Mhm.
your eyes. It's just like a tunnel vision, really, of one perspective of way of life, which really might not be in alignment with your true calling and your true self, which is why there is all this sort of imbalance that we're talking about. So although working in corporate, you're doing this one thing. It's like having that balance and having your own personal practices to know that you can link them and stay aligned when you're in that corporate role. Maybe now if I went into corporate again, I'd be very different, because I have all this knowledge and backing behind me. Maybe it would be very different. And I love the fact that you are balancing that through, and I know you're transitioning, which is fantastic, but the whole point is that you are living through it at the moment. And I find that fascinating because so many people want to make transitions, and it's not always easy, but it is a step-by-step process. And that's what I love about speaking with you, and why I wanted to connect with you, because it is just pivotal that you are learning it in this day and age, and then you can relate to so many people and help so many more people, which is the aim of the game here. It's what we want to do. It's creating that and sharing that love to create that unity, reminding us that we're actually all not that different from each other. We're really not that different if we really saw strip it back and
Mm.
really see each other on that soul level. So I know you've talked about cacao. Thank you so much, because that sounds amazing. And I'd love to join one of your cacao ceremonies one day. Do you want to just talk a little bit about those and some of the things that you offer your clients?
Sure. So yeah, I'd be delighted. I was actually thinking of well, now that we can go back out and do them in
Mhm.
person, of first of all maybe doing one online, a cacao ceremony. So how that works is I tend to go very intuitively, so I don't really plan or prepare, what it's going to look like, because I tap into the energies of the group, and then yeah, just deliver what is needed for that group in that moment. So but it's generally around like a meditation using cacao at the beginning, and yeah, and with like energy work linked to that. Might have some like kundalini yoga breath work, but yeah, it's very simple. And sometimes it's just giving people that space to just do nothing and relax, because yeah, things have been so stressful. And yeah, like I said before, cacao really helps to just alleviate and let go of that stress. And yeah, so I do them. I'm going to start doing them online for I'm thinking yet, so I can keep you posted, but for possibly the next new moon or
Mhm.
full moon. I'm just still feeling into it, so not the coming full moon, but the one in June.
Yeah.
And so other than that, I work with people on a one-to-one basis, but also groups. But the one-to-one is around. So I'm working on about to launch this package for one-to-one that is called like Awaken to Your Cosmic Life,
Mhm.
and it really integrates all the tools that have helped me so much, on my journey. Of awakening, of building, of really getting in tune with our like higher purpose. And that can seem a bit daunting or a bit scary to people, but it's it doesn't have to be necessarily a big thing like a change in career, but it can be just to feel more purposeful and really tap into like why it is that we're here. Because so often we can just go onto that hamster wheel, and it's that like waking up day in day out and going to work, and not even knowing why we're doing what we're doing, and
Mhm.
not feeling that spark. So it's really awakening the packet. This program is really awakening people back to themselves, so using like more traditional coaching tools like subconscious reprogramming and neuroscience, but also integrating that with energy work and meditation and cacao, of course. So yeah, so that's one way for now that I work. with
Sounds
people.
amazing. That program sounds fantastic and just what everyone needs. That's really, really exciting. Wow. I feel like I've learned so much about cacao, and making me want to have a cup of cacao now, actually.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we
Um,
should have one together sometime soon.
Oh, absolutely. I would love to. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing and shining your light in the world to help others, to help ourselves, and ultimately work towards that unity consciousness that we are so in need of at the moment. And the way our world is evolving towards as well. And the more light workers in the world that we can invite in, the better. And it's so exciting to be a part of your journey, and I'm so excited to follow you along your way as well. Thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you. Likewise, it's been such an honor, and yeah, it's so lovely to connect with you. It's giving me goosebumps. Yeah, it's been really lovely, and it's such an honor to be here with you and to share, both our journeys and experiences. And one thing I wanted to just leave everyone with is,
Mhm.
you know, there's this sense like when we go onto this journey that, first of all, there's nothing to, I know it sounds a bit like contradictory, but there's nothing to necessarily heal because we're
Mhm.
not broken, right? There's nothing to fix. And often it can be like, become a bit of an obsession. I need to do this next thing and I need to go and do this and that. But it's actually, you're perfect as you are. And like you said at some point, during our talk, is just remembering. It's that remembering. It's not that you need to fix yourself and be someone else.
Mhm.
And often I just like to put it as, this journey, it's not that we're just going to get there and it's done. It's a lifelong journey. And it's a lifelong journey of like growth and expansion, and not necessarily having to fix ourselves, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. It's so true that the journey is never ending, but it's so fulfilling. It's understanding every reason, every moment in the presence as to why we are doing what we're doing, knowing our why really ultimately. And
Mhm.
thank you so much for finishing on that final note. And it's so important to know that you are enough, we are enough, just
Mhm.
as we are. I love that. Thank you so, so much, Nadia. So
Thank
much
you,
love to you.
Francesca.
Thank
It's been
you.
amazing.